Cam Robinson always brings me joie.
Joie d'hockey?
And and he joins us from Allen, Texas, and the World Under 18s, where he is the Pope. More on that here. And how are you, buddy? Good to see you.
I'm doing well, fellas. I mean, that might have been the best lead-in I've seen. I need a BZ4X. Like, I want the windows down and the stereo hot. Like, that sounds like a great time.
They might make them in Texas. Big Toyota part of the world. They have Toyota factories in Texas. It might be the BZ4X there. Just be careful.
Wait. Hold on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Good point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Don't want to out yourself as a Canadian.
No.
Zed.
Yeah. Good call.
Cam, we do want to talk to you about Tom Willander. You had information there last week. We also want to ask you about a young prospect that's going to play for Canada there, plays as junior hockey here in BC and could very well be in the Canucks territory in the first round. But we have to start with management's year-end press availability on Monday. What caught your ear?
Yeah, that was some.
What
press
didn't
conference.
catch your ear?
Yeah.
Shorter list.
I mean, they pulled back the curtain for the most part. I mean, Rutherford did absolutely. A little maybe crossing the line with some no tampering charges, but just because it doesn't make sense that they would be the ones acquiring the player. Instead, it would be New Jersey waiting to acquire Quinn Hughes when he goes to free agency. I thought it was good. I thought it was open. Basically cards on the table. They need to go get a second line center, and they say it's going to be expensive, but it would be more expensive to not do it. I'd probably agree. They talked about the injuries, they talked about the chemistry issues in the room, and it wasn't so much excuses, but it was kind of like, here's what happened. We had higher expectations. They didn't come to fruition. And so, that part I was fine with. The Tom Willander stuff with Patrick Allvin, I was a little less excited about, and we can dive into that as well too.
Yeah, well, we'll start with the captain, because we talked about it yesterday. This was a story that was percolating with Canucks fans, one that I don't think a lot of people wanted to take head on this soon this summer, and yet Rutherford has now laid it at the feet. How chilled do you suspect they are? How chilled would you be about the prospect of Quinn Hughes maybe going into his final season as a Canuck?
Oh, guys, I mean, like, this isn't in or around the industry. It's something that we've, it's been fretted about in the market anyways, is that, how do they lock him up? When they went they didn't go a max term deal on him, and they set this up. They set him up to be able to walk away. And I'm sure that was by design for him too, is a shorter contract. I can see where everything's at, and I can maybe go play with my brothers. Not to say that Quinn Hughes is going to leave, right? Is that he could still sign a long contract and still go play with his brothers one day. And he's the captain. I'm sure that played a role in giving him the captaincy, but I like the honesty, but I didn't like kind of the storm that has started out of this. When it's someone on Twitter talking about like, oh, Quinn Hughes might want to play with his brothers, might want to leave. It's one thing. When it's your president of hockey ops saying it, it's another thing. And that's going to be the question that Quinn's going to be asked here in every media availability until something gets done too. So it's just, let's try to tamp some fires out before we start some new ones.
Do you feel like, there's an inevitability to a massive change to the Canucks for next year, regardless, whether it's probably not Hughes for next year, but Pettersson and the coach? Like, should people hold on to the armrests here a little bit, that something big has to happen for this Canucks team based on what we've heard?
Yeah, something big will happen. And it could be like earth-shattering where it is Rick Tocchet leaves, and it is Elias Pettersson's dealt at the draft in LA there in a couple of months. It could just be that they go out and sell the farm on getting like a really big name center. Do they go in and try to get Matt Barzal out of the Isles, right? Who just like Lou Lamoriello, and they'll probably be shifting to a rebuild style or retool style. Do they try to go get Bo Horvat, or do they even go bigger game hunting and they try to pull a huge UFA and a Mitch Marner or a Sam Bennett or something like that? So I do expect that something big is going to happen. I think it's much easier to go and make a signing and trade for a player than it is to move off an Elias Pettersson. And then the Rick Tocchet situation, that's just up to him. If he wants to be in Vancouver, they'll have him in Vancouver. If he doesn't, then he'll be gone. So I think Canucks fans are probably pretty aware of that now.
Is Malholtra a candidate if Rick moves elsewhere, particularly if he has success here with the Abbotsford Canucks?
No inside information on it, but he absolutely should be a candidate. And the other good thing about him is that he's going to be cost effective, right? Which is ownership would love that too. Is that they could get him on a shorter term deal at a smaller price tag than what they're going to have to pay. Obviously, Rick Tocchet, or another established NHL veteran coach, which gets into the recycle session here. But you end up still paying him their $3 to $5 million too.
Mm-hmm. Do you suspect that Barzal is now available, or do you suspect that the New York Islanders are going to go through some degree of retool rebuild that allows either Barzal or Horvat to shake free?
I do think that that's a possibility. I think that they, when Lou came in there, he helped that team, get to Eastern Conference Finals and a couple of years ago, and they kind of squeezed all the juice that they had left out. And trading Brock Nelson and making some moves at the deadline that they did is signaled that the future has to change. It has to be about building again. So obviously Horvat's under contract for a number of years. He's not a young player. He could be a trade chip for sure. Barzal's younger, but he's not as young as he once was, right? And he has that injury history, but he still has name value. And I think that the team would do well if they could get a good price for him to trade. And the buying team would be taking on some of that risk with his injury history, but he is a supremely speedy and talented player who could really inject a lot of life into a lineup like the Canucks.
I could see.
Do you like him in the middle, Cam? Because I know he's played both. Where do you prefer Barzal, and what kind of profile of player do you want to see him play with?
I would prefer him in the middle because that would solve the problem. And he can handle himself down the middle for sure. That's where he's played his entire career. He has that speed on the wing is nice, and it frees him up from the responsibility. But you can say that about any really speed-driven center too. So he's not an overly defensively responsible center, but he can handle himself well. Who do I want to see him play with? I want to see him probably play with guys who can handle themselves a little bit more defensively, but also have that goal scoring too, right? Is because he is a good passer. He's a very good passer. He has that speed that he can back up the defense, open up that space, and then move it over for the shot.
He and Horvat make the most sense for the Canucks because the Islanders could turn the page here. They've gone on lengthy runs with Barzal, not so much with Horvat, but they've gone on lengthy playoff runs with Matt Barzal as a member of the New York Islanders. Like, they've given the Barzal era a chance. So them turning the page there makes a little bit of sense. The other name that's coming up here for the Canucks that I see a little less sense in is Dylan Larkin, in that the Red Wings really want to be good. They have not made the playoffs. Like, the Islanders have been in the playoffs for 5 of the last 6 years before this year. Like they've been taking bites of the apple. The Red Wings have not. Like, they need to get in. They need to have a winning trade, not a liquidation trade. So do you see any path to Dylan Larkin?
I mean, there's always a path potentially there if you want to give up real now assets, right? Which is
but what do the Canucks have in that? Yeah.
Elias Pettersson, right? Like it's
part
right?
of that trade, sure.
Yeah, maybe that's the way, but no, I don't see them moving off of Larkin unless it's an upgrade on Larkin. He's a hell of a player too, right? So absolutely, there'd be a whole host of teams that would line up to trade for him, but it doesn't make sense for the Red Wings because they need, like you said, they need to take that next step. They have to get into the playoffs, or else it's like Steve Yzerman has to be on the hot seat at this point already.
Let's jump into the Willander thing. Because that took people by surprise. He's going back to school. The agent has since refuted that. Where are you at? What's your information saying?
I mean, I've been putting it out there. I've been saying it on the show here from day one. He wanted to come out. He feels he's ready to come out. The advisor feels the same way. He was happy to not burn a year off his ELC, start it for 25, 26, and go to Abbotsford and play a couple regular season games and get in there for their playoff run. He was ready. As soon as that national championship game, he could have been in Abbotsford the next day. But, and I've said this for a while, is that the Canucks have an internal structure for what they do for their entry-level contract bonuses, right? They did it on the Kiramaki. But it's like, it's a different ball game. Like, this kid he has options. He can go back to BU. He can play a third year there. And then now you have no more leverage. He goes back one more time. You're losing at potentially losing an 11th overall pick. He can go back to Rogel. He can play in the SHL next season. He's back in Stockholm, right? He's skating with the national team right now. And he's doing that because the Canucks left him really no other options, right? He's sitting there at school where a bunch of his teammates have already signed. They moved on to the AHL, to the NHL. He doesn't have anyone to practice with and train, and he's not ready to shut down his season. He's not ready to look to training mode yet. He's still hoping to play games, and whether that's with Abbotsford or with the national team, that's what he'd prefer. And so for the Canucks, it's like, I just don't understand at this point. You're going to haggle over tens of thousands of dollars on these Schedule A bonuses for a player that you took at such a lofty spot in the draft. It's like I understand when management teams will lowball a player purposely because they're maybe not thrilled with what he's accomplished so far in his development. And they're like, you know what? Yeah, we took you at this spot, but we're not fully committed to you long term yet. So this is what we have to offer. But this is
Can
a
you
player
even
that
devil's advocate it? Can you even devil's advocate it? Like try to imagine what they're thinking. Can you even get there?
Well, maybe that's it. What he just said.
I mean, but there's no reason for them to not be overly, to be intrigued and he's played very, very well. Like he was, and people razz on me because Axel Sandin Palika is such a tremendous player. I thought he was Sweden's best player at the World Juniors. I thought that he, handling Sasha Boumediene was the youngest player in the NCAA this year. They were partnered up all year. He was babysitting the youngest player in college hockey, and he did very, very well. In the national championship game, when they were overwhelmed by Western Michigan, he was one of the few players on BU who was not overwhelmed by the moment and by the stage and by the pressure. He still played well. He rises to the occasion. He's not someone who's going to put up 50, 60 points in the NHL. That's not the player that he is, but he is one of these ones that you win with because he can eat up tons of minutes, play strong defensively, move the puck. He skates well. He does all the little things right. Louis Eriksson throwback. And there's no reason to not be smitten over this player. And it's like, if you just have an internal budget that you're like, no, we're not going to wiggle for anybody, it doesn't matter. Then it's like, why would you have that in place for performance A bonuses that are maximum going to cost you $1 million? See, Bulliam just came out. He got his $1 million in bonuses added to it. These things, like even if it's 750, you can get him up to near the max bonus that he's probably not going to hit them anyways.
Is he a trade chip now?
I mean, the fact that Alvin said that last week, the last we heard was that he was going to go back to school and that, it was a lot of money for this kid to be turning down. Those things to me, it's like, they're not going to pressure him to come out by saying that. He's turned down a pro contract in the SHL to go to BU, to chart a path that we haven't seen before. A kid coming out of the J20 defenseman to go to the NCAA, huge leap, something we never see. He's like a pioneer in that regard. So he's unafraid to take a unique course of action here. So for them to be like, yeah, we're offering him a lot of money, just not what he wants, and for him to turn down, I don't think that that's very good. It's not very reflective of a positive relationship. And I think that from Willander's side, it's like he's learning how the business is done right now and who you can really trust. So I do think that there's a potential that this relationship is starting to get fractured a little bit here, and then that makes a lot of sense that he becomes a trade chip.
I still think it's ridiculous, but are the Canucks are they emboldened because they just feel a little bit safer in their whole blue line setup right now?
Yeah, Victor Mancini, playing so well on the right side there, and he looks like he's quickly developing too, is that it takes some of the pressure, but it's still like, look at that right side of the defense core and what they have in the pipeline. They still need Tom Willander. Like that is a piece that can be a legitimate top 4 guy, maybe even a top pairing guy, a complimentary top pairing guy on the right side that you invested an 11th overall pick. You said no, thank you to Zach Benson. You said no to all these players that went, there was Axel Sandin. There was a lot of good players that went after him. That they took this kid. It's like that you can't just waste that. So is the value going to be high enough for them to flip and turn him into a second line center? You're adding. So is it Willander in a first? That's a big cost. It better be a big name and an impactful young player coming back.
Yeah, and they specifically wanted this sort of profile too, right? The right shot defenseman. There were a lot of people thought it took him a little bit early, but understood it because it's the scarcest commodity. Speaking of prospects, Cam, you're at the U18s there, and we anticipate that Canada will be adding a young center iceman from the Victoria Royals who sadly lost in double overtime last night to Spokane. So they're out of the WHL playoffs in round 2. Going to see Spokane and Portland in the Western final. Tell us about Cole Rushey, because I see him with some helium up draft charts and might be there for the Canucks at number 15.
Yeah, Rushey, really good player. The first legitimate star that the Victoria Royals have had. No disrespect to some of their former players, but as a draft eligible, he continued to get better as the season went along, and his points just kept on flowing. So he's averaged over 2 points a game going back to basically the new year. So he has been on a heater of all heaters. He was co-leading the CHL in points up until last night. Like you said, big double overtime loss for Victoria. That was their best playoff run though. Very nice player. He's a little slighter. He's slippery. I've seen him a number of times live, and he can get, forced to the outside, especially, when I saw him at the Hlinka and things like that, where it's just, he's not strong enough yet at the really high end levels to force his way into things, but he's gotten better at it as the year progressed. An interesting player that We still rank in the 20s. But I think that with this hot streak, and he's going to, in all likelihood here, I've been told that very, very likely to expect him to join this Team Canada here in Texas for the U18s. If he has a big tournament here, every scout in the NHL is at this event right now, and all the AGMs and the GMs will be here as well too. So if he has a big tournament right now, I could see him creeping up into the teens and convincing a team that he's worthy. And, the Canucks picking at 15, that he's an option. I think there's probably going to be better options, even players that are here. A kid like Brady Martin, who is, like, from my opinion, technically the best body checker I've ever seen at this age group. Like, he hits, and he hits hard, and it like hurts, and he doesn't chase hits. He just bury guys constantly. Plus he has offensive upside, two-way upside, plays the middle of the ice, plays in the Sioux there in the O. Really great player, has like a kind of unique backstory, Mennonite farm boy kid. He's got that farm boy strength. He's a player that I really like. And if he's around for 15, he's someone that I think Vancouver should take a long look at.
Look at you acting like the Canucks are going to use that draft pick. It's adorable.
Whoever has their pick, whoever has that pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Reshney from Macklin, Saskatchewan. Speaking of farm boy, population 1,247. It's by the Alberta line, Blake, due south of Lloydminster, due east of Red Deer. Okay, buddy. Well, you have a fantastic week there at the U18s. Go Canada, go, and we'll catch up next week.
Sounds good. I'll be in Frisco next time we talk next week. There we go.